We are recording. This is Service API's meeting. It's our first meeting at our new time, December 2, 2020, and also our first meeting once we released V1 Alpha 1. This agenda ended up being fairly long for today, mostly just because I added a bunch of notes, questions, comments. I don't know that any one of these things will take forever to get through, but I did want to at least add them to the list to make sure we covered them. So with that, Bowie, I think you wanted to talk a bit about the landing page and how we might be able to improve it.
Yeah, I was looking at this. I think the landing page is good if you wanted like a deep dive on the service APIs. The one thing I kind of wanted to see how we can sort of add to this is like there should be a quick start link, at least from the very top, like a TLDR that sends someone to one of the guides. Getting started or sample gateway. I think this one, right now it's a little bit intimidating because you're first thrown into the whole multi-role business. So I was wondering if other people kind of went through this.
Bowie, one thing I was thinking is that we would minimize to take the basically take the example out of this page and just have this about installing the CRDs, and then maybe links to. We could also maybe put links to open source implementations here, which would link out to those pages, and then the next one would be simple gateway, and then after that would be basic HTTP route matching, and then so on.
Yeah, I think like right now from our landing page, I think these are okay, we can work on them. But basically from the landing page, it's just like, it feels like a college textbook, kind of like here are these like, super big concepts, very, not as much concrete stuff to kind of, for the common user to kind of grapple with. So my main comment is like, we should probably throw something at the very top that basically gives like a fork in the road. It's like, do you care to learn the concepts, or do you just want to see examples and learn that way? And then just kind of shut them off to one side. And then the other people who want to go in deep into the concepts can have another route.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I think for me, if I were browsing this site, I would immediately see guides and just go over here and run through. Like, this is probably what I would focus on first as well. But you can get to it. But maybe there is a better way, a more prominent way to link to this, because I do think for a number of people, they will want to just walk through introduction, getting started, etc., to understand this. But that's not going to be everyone.
Like, for example, I was going through the introduction page. We don't link at all to the guides here, I don't think, until like pretty far down.
Yeah, it's down at the end here. Yeah.
Yeah, like you can't find it. So I will send a PR, but basically, like, it should be at the very top that you go to the landing page. If all you care about is just like a concrete example, then you can just go through it right away.
Okay. Yeah, this will be a lot more helpful when we have implementations that we can list here, which I guess is a good segue into your next topic, Bowie.
Yeah, like I think now that the API has been cut, we should start tracking in this group sort of how people are progressing on the implementation. couple of things. Like one is, probably the next thing we're looking at is conformance. So we can start that up while people are booting up their implementations. The other one is like, as soon as you guys have something available, we can throw it on the page. We're trying to think about how this would appear on the page so that people can try it out. And then third, it's cool to basically VC demos from various groups who are implementing the API.
John, it sounds like Istio is fairly far along here. Is there anything we can link to for something like that could be useful right now, like used to test this out?
Yeah, we have a small doc that basically says install the CRD, flip this flag on because it's off by default, and then link to these docs because we don't want to maintain a copy of everything here basically. So that could easily be linked from here, I suppose.
Okay, cool. Is that in
it's basically like
the
install
latest
Istio and put the flag on? So
is
yeah,
that in the latest Istio
I think so.
release?
I forget if it merged.
Okay.
Yeah, let me send it to you. I'm pretty sure it is. I mean, I didn't get it merged. Let me get the PR merged and then I'll send it to you.
Okay, cool.
I know the Contour team's looking at spinning up an implementation soon. I know Nick was working on some design docs for that, but nothing yet to link to, but I know that's going to happen soon. I know the Red Hat folks also want to use that as well. So I think we'll have something to play with soon.
Cool, that'd be awesome. Bowie or Mark, do you know of other implementations that are in progress here? Or anyone?
Yeah, I was just going to say to Mark that we should reach out to some of those other folks who are participating.
Yeah. I think Trafic had something that they were ready to share.
Cool. I've noticed we've gotten some great PRs coming in from Knative maintainers, so maybe there's something on that front as well. Harry, what do you think this might look like for Kong?
Yeah, so we prioritized it for the month of December. There have been some other priorities which have come up, so it's put on hold right now. The team is growing, so I'm hoping we'll have something maybe towards the end of Q1, but nothing before that.
Okay, sounds good. All right. I guess that's all for that one. I'll keep on moving then. And we can get into the gateway naming results. It is, I guess, unsurprising. Router-based names were the next most popular after gateway-based names. But if I'm looking at these results, and I can show you the actual form responses and when people actually responded to the survey, it seems like the vast majority came in when we first sent it out. And then I pinged again yesterday on SIG Network and got a few more responses. That really, almost every response that came in the past couple of days was for Gateway. Gateway was already in the lead, but this just kind of extended that lead. With that said, Gateway has 11 first place votes, which is more than double any other alternative. And you can see that router was, and anything related to router was second most popular. Given this outcome, I can't think of any kind of compelling reason to change the gateway name. It seems like this is the one that the community prefers, and it certainly is the path of least resistance for us. So I think this may have been what a lot of us were expecting, but this is...
Rob, are you sure we captured the app community. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't just SIG network that was involved.
What? So you mean are you meaning end users specifically?
Yeah, end users, SIG apps.
Okay. Yeah, I mean we can leave the survey open, and I can send this out to a broader audience if we want. Yeah.
Rob, I was gonna say, has there been much discussion on why people feel a certain way or another? Like, is there like been a thread on like, oh, I feel strongly that it's router because blah blah blah.
No, I have not seen that on GitHub at least. I think we've had brief discussions in community meetings around naming, but I wouldn't say there's been any. I'd say among the maintainers who attend community meeting, the general support has been for Gateway that I've heard. But we are also most familiar with what we've already been working on, so we're a very biased group.
Yeah, I don't expect it to change significantly. I just wanted to make sure that we captured like both the end users and the implementers.
Do you have a suggestion for a good way to reach out to end users? You know, as an example, it seems like Kubernetes dev is not necessarily end users. I'm just trying to think
Oh, they're
of a
gonna
mailing list.
tell you to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Is there a general list? I just want, like, we don't have to belabor it too much. We just ping it out to a couple more broadcasts and then close it.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
I
know,
was thinking like just have a mention in the community meeting, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, that seems like a reasonable thing. I'll look up when that is. I'd agree. I don't anticipate this is going to change very significantly. But yeah, I don't mind finding the next community meeting and showing up there, getting this on the agenda. Cool. All right.
I'll start some discussion. I know there was an issue about the naming. There just wasn't much discussion on it. So I mean, I'll just throw out some opinions and see who wants to argue.
Okay.
Because I think it's helpful to kind of talk about, well, why do we feel these names are, is Gateway too overlapping with the term API gateway, or are there other uses cases like gRPC that might make Gateway look like a gRPC route or something like that might make Gateway the wrong term for those kinds of use cases? Like, I feel like that discussion would be helpful to kind of help drive people in one direction or another.
Yeah, that is true, and we do have an open issue. There just hasn't been much discussion on it. So it'd be great to see if we can drive up a little bit more discussion there as well.
Okay, cool.
Cool. Let me keep on going here. I just added this at the last minute here. I know in our last meeting, I'd said that we needed to clean up ownership, diversify project ownership. I think we've accomplished that. I think really I'd been overthinking it and looked around, talked to Contribex and looked around and saw what other projects were doing under SIGs. And it seems like we really should just have all maintainers be owners and approvers at this case. And that's what I updated a week or so ago. Can't remember the exact timeline there. Hopefully everyone saw that, but that means that in addition to Bowie and myself, James, Harry, and Danian are all now approvers in the repository. So we have a little bit more diversity there, and we cleaned up the owners file as a whole to more closely match lists that are maintained elsewhere. So hopefully that's a good start, but always open to future changes. There are good Kubernetes guidelines for who a reviewer, approver, etc. should be, and what each should have accomplished to reach that goal. And I think everyone that we graduated from reviewer to owner very much met the requirements for an approver. So yeah, that's I think that's a good change. And thank you to everyone for, thank you for the link, whoever's taking notes. If I can actually go there. Yes, the other change that we've added is this mirrored, I think it was Cluster API did something similar, but we added the SIG leads here as well, so that SIG network leads can approve everything. And actually I can remove you here, Bo, yet I just left you in case all my aliases didn't work for whatever reason. But now that they have shown that they work, I'll probably remove this one reference to a name. Yeah, cool. All right, I'll keep on moving here because we've got plenty to go through today. One of the things that has been relatively confusing to me, and we just kind of punted until after we released V1 Alpha 1, was what do we do for new changes? This is really all of this discussion, right? What still makes it into V1 Alpha 1, what goes into V1 Alpha 2, and how do we structure those changes? How do we structure our repository? Up until now, we've just kind of been, everything we do goes into master when we're done, docs updates, everything, because we didn't
Don't we have to
release.
create a new directory anyways, Rob, for V1 Alpha 2?
We do have to create a new directory, regardlessly, yes.
I think we just don't branch in that case.
So, okay. So there's some extra bits of weirdness here, right? I think we want our docs to mirror V1 Alpha 1 until we have V1 Alpha 2 ready. It would be strange, I think, to be updating docs to include things that weren't actually usable for our users. So that means that we probably want some kind of separate branch or something, some kind of separation for V1 Alpha 2 docs that is different from V1 Alpha 1 docs. And right now, make docs.
Yeah, I think like we'd have to do it explicitly in the code.
Yeah.
Rather than, someone has to go do some surgery. Usually what I've seen that works the best is you have like docs for a particular version and then one for unstable that's just generated at head.
Yeah.
Something like that. Because the fact that you have a separate directory for Alpha 2 makes it so that if you branch, you both have a separate directory and you have a branch, which is probably pretty confusing.
Yeah.
But you have a separate directory only for the code, right? Or like the Go spec or the package, right? For the docs, it's a little more fuzzy.
Exactly. Yeah.
I
mean, we can restructure our docs. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, like we should just restructure the docs and like make the generator kind of know about all the versions, because as I said before, like you have both like two directories and you have like a branch on top of it, and then I feel like just the amount of stuff you have to update when you update the docs. Let's say you had to like backport something to it gets kind of hairy in terms of like understanding where your changes are going and like what is actually the current published state.
So there are other tools that make this a lot easier. Like as an example, Read the Docs ties docs releases to versions, and those docs are frozen with that version. This is based on my very short reading of their docs, so I could be oversimplifying or getting something wrong there. This does seem like something that is
Here's the other thing is like,
go ahead.
yeah, someone needs to explore if mkdocs some setup. The other thing is like, do we like mkdocs, and should we switch to something else if it's not going to make sense?
You know, I think this is actually tying into a PR that Harry raised earlier, I think this week, which was to re-enable search in our docs. Our docs have gotten fairly large, and search would be very helpful. But as we experienced before, search in mkdocs is incredibly painful for all the merge conflicts it causes. And now that we have our API spec in docs, it's then indexed by search, which means any change to docs, which by definition includes any change to even a Go comment somewhere in our types file, is going to conflict with any other change. So we have tons of rebasing and pain, and all because we want search, and mkdocs way of implementing search is not great. So maybe it's worth.
Yeah, one other thing is
tools.
just to throw another wrench into this is that now that we've moved to Alpha 1, is now the time to talk to contribx about putting it on the official doc stuff? Like, how does it work for this Kubernetes SIGs repos? Because we're kind of using the GitHub auto docs thing, but like the rest of the Kubernetes documentation actually lives somewhere else, and it has like a different format.
Yeah, so I've got in general support for adding references to service APIs, and maybe even a page about service APIs on Kubernetes docs, Kubernetes website, but I don't think we'd want to have our entire documentation living on Kubernetes website. I think it really is more just a entry point to point to wherever our docs live. I think, you know, I often think of Cluster API as maybe one of our best reference points here of docs that have been done well. And in that case, they have their own docs that are maintained and I think referenced from Kubernetes website.
And they use the GitHub hosting? I'm just curious how they do it.
I don't believe so. I looked and they are using kates.io domain, which I think we could do as well. We just need to figure out. I mean,
yeah, like how did they get that?
Right.
So
right.
Is that also a requirement that we do have to get to like that, or like can we be independent and iterate here? Like,
so they use a kates.io domain, but it is their docs are in their repo still.
So do we have to move our docs is what I'm trying to understand, or can we like continue what we have been doing till we?
I think we should, and we should continue to, and can continue to host our docs in our repo. I just think we could improve how they're deployed so that things like versioning are maybe a bit simpler, and search.
I see. So, I mean, yeah, I think we need to explore either use read the docs or use Jekyll or use Hugo. I mean, I think Hugo is also used by the upstream. So they do have enough templates that, you know, enable us to support, you know, versioning in the docs, you know, in the spec and the way we want to. So yeah, that's probably an action item that that needs to be taken care of.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I mean,
I would like to align with upstream and then at least get the vanity domain somehow. Yeah. And we can still host, and we'll still have like owners and approvers on our doc stuff. It's just that I think like mkdocs, it feels like at some point we're going to have to like hack it significantly to make it do what we want, which would not be fun.
I see. So,
Yeah.
Boy, so help me understand. You're making 2 points. One is get our docs to a subdomain of kts.io, and second is move away from mkdocs to something different, and hopefully something different is same as what upstream uses.
I'd say like if we move it to something different and that's also different from upstream, then that probably doesn't make sense. The only thing we should move to is something that upstream can support. And then some like long-term-ish plan, like when it goes to beta and then eventually GA, like where does it actually live permanently? It's fine if it's still hosted by GitHub. It just seems like we probably want to have some other home.
Got it. Okay, so there are 2 action items: the future home, and the second is let's move towards whatever upstream uses and ensure that it like whatever we want, however we want to structure the docs, it's possible within the realm of what upstream uses.
Yeah, like eventually we would want to benefit from whatever docs big improvements are happening there rather than trying to maintain it ourselves.
Makes sense. Yeah. So so I'll try to, Rob, maybe I'll open an issue to, and I think there is already an issue around this of organizing our docs better, but I think the tooling needs probably another GitHub issue where to explore what upstream uses and see how we can incorporate it in our current docs.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be great to have as another issue. I know it's probably a couple months ago now. I talked with Bob Killen about what they've used. I think it was for the Kubernetes contributors website. I forget it. One of the newer Kubernetes websites out there. And they seem pretty happy with the tooling they used there. So I think that would be a good reference point as well.
Yeah. So yeah, I think let me open a GitHub issue to track that, and I'll see if I have some time to do that. So that takes care of docs. I'm more interested in the next question of what still makes into V1 alpha, because that also influences docs a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. So there's a couple things here. I think it's pretty clear that bug fixes need to be backported to V1 Alpha 1. We've already had a few go in. Most of these bug fixes are, related to comments or other things that did not match up with our most recent changes, as an example. On the other hand, I think it's pretty clear that anytime we make a breaking change, like either renaming a field or removing a field, that should not be part of V1 Alpha 1, and that should be reserved for V1 Alpha 2 if we do it at all. What is less clear to me are what I would consider these kind of middle ground things. One would be breaking Go changes. Harry has a PR that does this right now, and that's just trying to clean up our Go types to, I think you merged a type. I forget exactly what you did, but it's a net positive. It's a net cleanup, but it could be a little bit annoying if you're a consumer of the API using Go. And before I go to the second one, how do we feel about this breaking Go changes or cleanup that changes Go types in any way? Does that seem like something like we should include in V1 Alpha 1?
My opinion is that should be a V1 Alpha 2 thing.
Okay. And then maybe the last one is new fields. And I really don't know about this one. I think it makes a lot of sense to keep new fields wherever possible. Well, I don't know. The argument for adding new fields to V1 Alpha 1 is that you get to test out new functionality and you avoid the significant overhead of a new API version. the downside of adding new fields is you introduce some level of confusion over which version of V1 Alpha 1 a user has. Yeah. The fear is that if we don't allow new fields into an existing API version, then we'll end up with, you know, V1 Alpha 3 or 4, or I don't know how many alphas, and that will get painful in and of itself. So I'm not sure where the balance is here.
Yeah, I mean, that's my concern too. Like having like CRD versions are heavyweight, right? And like in terms of impact they have on end users, docs, and you know, triaging issues and whatnot. So that is like an overhead, and the second overhead is, you know, having different fields for different APIs, right? We don't have like a version to tag on to. Like in Kubernetes, you can introduce new fields, but you know, you have Kubernetes version to go along. This field was introduced in a Kubernetes version, and we don't have that. So it is definitely a little tricky. And another aspect is maintenance. So if you keep introducing new fields in a V1 Alpha 1, then you know and then we have breaking changes in V1 Alpha 2, then you know there are 2 branches that you have to maintain, and then you know merge them, make sure things are not conflicting semantically, right? Not in terms of like Git conflicts. So that's the other aspect to it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
You just had to look at too is this is your time to get it right in the alphas, right?
Yeah.
So you can churn them now and then not churn them later. So whatever
Yeah.
you go with, is a better spot to do it now.
Yeah. Do you have a recommendation if you had to choose one way or another? Would you prefer adding new fields to an existing API version to avoid lots of new alpha versions, or more API versions but less changes between them?
I know like on Contour we allow new versions or new fields to come into the spec, but we can't break backwards. So because it is heavy. I mean, when you have to add, we did this with Envoy, having to support different versions of Envoy XDS was a bit painful to have all that different logic to watch them and change them and can figure all that out. So yeah, we do that in Contour. We allow add fields to be added, but I understand both sides of it for sure.
Yeah.
Because then you have to figure out a good release cadence. If you are going to add a new, sorry, I cut you off. To add a new version, you're going to have a release cadence to figure out, well, how often do you release that version to let people then consume them?
Exactly. Yeah. That and so we've already left room for that in our versioning strategy. We have said that we have semantic versioning for service APIs, and we will release a new minor version occasionally that could include new API fields. But would not necessarily include a new API version. So it's a thing that we can do, and like you're saying, like there's plenty of prior art for it. So maybe we should start down here and say yes to at least start. And if we get to a point where that becomes troublesome, or we're adding too many fields, we can revisit it in the future. But right now, I have seen that's what we're doing in upstream Kubernetes. That's what other projects are doing. It seems reasonable to allow new fields. In which case, I think we have a lot of flexibility in what we can add to V1 Alpha 1 without needing a new API version anytime soon. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, that strikes a good balance, I think. So.
Cool. I can't remember. Yeah, I do have a GitHub issue that somewhat covers this. I'll go through and try to update this and maybe make a docs update as well to clarify exactly what we want to include in V1 Alpha 1. Okay. So based on that, it sounds like we probably can continue to punt on V1 Alpha 2 for some time, because I don't imagine we're going to need breaking changes soon. And if we're not planning on making breaking changes anytime soon, we can continue to just work and iterate on V1 Alpha 1.
But then,
And I do, go ahead.
but then we do have like one PR, which is a breaking change, right? Like, do we just
Yeah.
keep it around, or like, do we create a V1 Alpha 2 directory and continue iterate there too?
My preference would be to just hold that, because, and if we create a new V1 Alpha 2, we're going to have to make any updates to both. You know, like, oh, I'm adding a new field. Let me add it to V1 Alpha 1 and V1 Alpha 2. And let me like, and then I don't know. I think that overcomplicates things. I am happy to be corrected on this one though. I hate to add complexity until we have to here.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree there, right? Like it's much more maintenance overhead, so we definitely should do that. But then we need a way to track the breaking changes that we do
Yep.
want to introduce, right? And
Yep.
maybe if that can be, a simple label on a GitHub issue, or just have PRs that go stale, but we know that we do want to get to these
Yep.
point or something like that, right? So
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think once we get, some kind of critical mass of these are the things that we know we want and to have, but they are going to be somewhat breaking changes. I think that's the point where we have to branch out to V1 Alpha 2 and really revisit these options again. But for right now, since the only thing I think we have is that bit of Go cleanup, I don't think that's enough on its own to require V1 Alpha 2 quite yet.
I agree.
Cool. Okay. The next little bits here are what we should focus on in December. I think this is something we've already mostly covered here. Obviously, a lot of us are going to be working on building implementations and getting feedback for those implementations. Beyond that, I know that we talked about a validating webhook. I created this tracking issue yesterday. There's a few things that we've already identified that would be included or need to be covered with a validating webhook. And actually, one of those would be more of a mutating webhook, because setting a default class specifically. Anyways, we would need some kind of webhook to enforce this kind of behavior. So this is one bit of work that we should be focused on. And the other relatively large bit of work is conformance tests. This is an old issue, but now that we actually have V1 Alpha 1 out, it's something that we've identified is a high priority item. These are both relatively large projects, and I imagine we'll want to have one person focused on, well, a group of people focused on each one, and not, like different people working on conformance tests than are working on the webhook, as an example. With that said, we have a fairly small group here today, so maybe when we have a few more people, we can get some volunteers for either webhook or conformance tests, or if anyone right now feels like they have some time to work on conformance tests for this or a webhook implementation, definitely feel free to volunteer, assign yourself to the issue. Both of these issues right now are not assigned to anyone, but would be great to get in place. Yeah. And the last little bit here, what do we want to have in V1 Alpha 2? I started to create a list. I think V1 Alpha 2 is far enough out, and I think these additions are far enough out that I don't want to focus on them very much right now. I'd say our focus on December should not be new fields, new features. It should be making sure what we have works. So that means conformance test, that means validating webhook, those kinds of things, docs improvements, building implementations that actually work with our setup. So with that said, I created this list. Initially, I thought it would be good to talk through each of these, but as I've thought about it more, I think this is more of an aspirational thing that we can revisit, say January, once we have some good progress on a webhook, once we have good progress on conformance tests, once we are pretty happy with what the base that we have already, then I think it's time to start discussing these fairly common feature requests here.
So Rob, so that is like whatever you have listed under December takes priority over the second lists, right?
That's my preference. Yeah, I think, it's very easy to get carried away and just keep on adding new things to the API. But if we don't have sufficient validation or conformance tests around what we already have, we may not be in the best position to add new things.
That makes sense. Yes, I agree.
Cool. There were a few issues that came in the past few days. One is really straightforward. We need TCP route examples. We've kind of ignored TCP route in our example. Well, okay, we have examples in YAML, but we don't have examples. I think we have examples in YAML. But I do, yeah. But we do not have a guide.
We have a half-baked guide on that. So can you assign that to me? I'll send a PDF.
Okay.
I never got around to completing it, but I do have like a guide for it, like how we have a guide for TCP route. So
that would be amazing. Cool. All right. I'm validating webhook. Conformance format. This is a new one. It looks like Mark had to drop off the call. This one feels like it's going to be complicated to get right. But some kind of generic way to say, okay, this gateway class supports HTTP, but not TCP or UDP. And it's support. This feels a little complicated to get right, but there probably is something here, some kind of generic way to describe what an implementation supports as we add additional route types, as we add, etc. As I've thought about this, I've wondered if we can make our output from conformance tests sufficiently helpful that it can just say, hey, it doesn't support this, but it is conformant with HTTP, and it is conformant with etc. Maybe that's not enough. It seems like it would be difficult to get this into, I'm assuming this would have to live in status. I'm not sure how we would fit this in. But yeah,
a little bit of more discussion and laying out some examples.
Yeah. I think this is going to become increasingly clear as we start to see more implementations and see what are the common things that are difficult to implement, and where are the bits of confusion, and how can we communicate differences between implementations. I think this is a very real need. It just may be a little too early in the process to have a good solution. Yeah. On this one, I have no issue with. We just probably need to have a good reason for whatever our new upper limit is. This, I think, this person is a Knative maintainer, and they mentioned that they support a 10 traffic splits, which is great. But like, where do you put that upper limit that is not going to run into someone else's upper limit, but also is reasonably straightforward for other implementations to support? So I followed up on this issue for a little bit more information, but I generally agree that it makes sense to have this number be higher than 4. Just as long as we can make it reasonable, supported by most implementations, and not an unbounded list. And did we already? No, I don't think we already covered this one. So yes, this is a good one. So is this something that can be accomplished just with a GoDoc update? Or,
yeah, but we need to figure out the order that can be supported by multiple implementations. I think
yeah,
that's a bigger goal. Otherwise, it's probably a GoDoc update.
Yeah. Okay.
Also, I mean, this is probably not, but could it be considered as a breaking change? I don't know.
Oh, that's, yeah. That, yeah, I had not, there's a couple other ones here that I can add this to the issue. But so as an example, validation changes. So we'll never increase validation, but we could loosen validation. I don't know. And the other one that you're talking about is breaking GoDoc changes.
It's more like it's more changing semantic behavior, right? Like something like that, right? Like, so it's yeah. So yeah, that's loosening validation is something like adding new fields to me.
Yeah.
So I didn't.
Yeah, to me, I think it's fine as long as we have a new release. It's that this one feels like you're saying this is a breaking change.
Could it be a bug fix? Like that's like that's that comes up in most projects. Like, oh no, this is a bug fix and we are changing it. It's fine. Oh, no, this is a breaking change. So it's
right.
it's a little hard to
Yeah.
categorize it.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, that's going to be hard to write some guidance around. I'm curious. I'll have to do some digging for prior art in upstream here, because I know there have been some things that have updated comments partway through a release, but I don't know that any of them have really affected behavior. But there's a very thin line between a bug fix and a breaking change here.
Yeah, and it gets like, at least internally.com, it gets like debated quite a bit, but it's usually a case by case thing, because
yeah,
the visibility of that feature matters, the adoption matters, right? And like there are so many nuances to each and everything there. So
Yeah.
that's been the case in my experience.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. The last thing on this list is from John, and I think that's something like we all agree with, but maybe this is a little bit further in scope than we've discussed before. And that's as we start getting further into implementation, there's probably going to be a fair amount of code that most implementations are going to have to implement that could potentially be shared. The example given of how you determine if a gateway is selecting a route. Yeah, that's a good one. I don't know, because it's so tied to informers. Well, I guess again, it depends on your implementation. But yeah, you basically would need to, I guess, in an ideal world, you would have a helper that accepted a gateway and a list of routes and return the list of routes that should actually, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, something like conflict resolution, right? Like given a set of listeners, are there conflicting listeners?
Yeah.
Like, that's something probably we can have in a helper library. And like I think this has come up again and again. It's just we haven't had like more concrete discussions.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. This could probably use.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go. This could probably use a tracking issue at least.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I can take the action item to create a tracking issue for this one. And I think that's all we had to discuss today. There's obviously a ton going on. We've got lots left to do here, but I'm just excited to start seeing some implementations coming out that will be using this. It looks like SDO, Trafic, Contour, Kong. I guess obviously somewhere in here we should add GCP. I don't actually know when we're actually releasing what we have. I know we have an internal alpha right now. Yeah, I'll just say that. But I don't know when that's going beyond that. Yeah, okay. Cool. I think that's all. Did anyone have anything else we should discuss here? All right. Well, thanks, everyone. We'll talk to you next week, and have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, everyone.
Cool.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you.